I am sitting here today looking at you guys telling you that I was able to beat my anxiety and make it extremely manageable, if not barely even have it. And this is such a fun video for me because I want to know, or not that I want to know, I want to let people know that I understand what you're going through. Mine might not be as worse as yours. Maybe yours wasn't even as worse as mine, but I'm here with you. I understand what you're going through, and I'm going to tell you how I ended up beating it, certain things and certain life choices that I made. And let's get into it because this is a treat for me. This is a treat because I really would love to bring this because at a certain point in my life in 2021, I remember I played an Uno game and it was very stressful and I got a little bit queasy, a little bit nauseous. For some reason, for me, if I start to feel queasy or nauseous, for some reason that triggers anxiety and makes me nervous, or I get nervous and then I don't feel good and then that makes me get nervous at things. It was a lot to do with being sick. I don't know why. I know I've heard other people say that they have a fear of throwing up and things like that. So I know that's a fear, and maybe that's a fear of mine, and maybe that's what causes it. But I ended up just not feeling really good. My stomach was hurting. I went to a football game, and I ended up just being nervous the whole time and couldn't really enjoy myself. And then kind of from then on for about a year straight, I had really, really bad. I wouldn't say really bad, but I had moments where I wouldn't go do anything that I wanted to do, or I wouldn't do anything because I'd get too nervous. It would ruin the time of whatever I'm doing. Even at school, I'm getting like extremely nervous at school for no reason. It could be the dumbest thing ever. And I'm just like riddled there, and I have to learn a breathing technique and just really bad. Not really bad, but it was taking away from my quality of life. It was taking away from my quality of life, and it became a point where I'm sick of it. I want to get over my anxiety. And I'm sure anybody here that's watching this, that was you. So what I started doing is I looked at a certain point in my life. I'm like, where am I? I have a job, but I'm extremely lazy. I'm unmotivated. I don't care about doing a good job. For me, I would say just kind of in a, I'm anxiety. Like I would still do a good job, but I wouldn't do as good. Like I wouldn't put any effort into anything. Just kind of lazy. And honestly, that's what really ended up starting me on kind of this motivational journey. And to be honest with you, as I'm thinking of this, what a blessing that if I didn't get anxiety in my life to the point where I would be here now sharing this with you guys. So technically it's kind of a blessing and a curse because it sucked through those years. But I'll get to that more in a little bit. So around December of 2022, I just wasn't having it. Like what I mean by that is for like 2 weeks, I just wasn't feeling nervous. I remember going to my mom. I was like, "Oh my goodness, like I don't really feel nervous." And she's like, "Oh, maybe you're growing out of it." And then it would be here and there, but then I would kind of just get over it. And then I was like, "Okay, I'm sick and tired of this anxiety. I'm sick and tired of anxiety ruining my life, and I want to get over it." So I got into the David Goggins. I got into the motivational scene, and he's like, "You got to callous your mind. You have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable." So because I was getting into that, and it was a slow buildup. I got like a little teaser of him, I remember, in October of 2022, and then I was like, oh, I remember seeing a video of this guy, and he was hilarious. Let me go look into him more and more. I end up getting his book, Can't Hurt. I think it's Can't Hurt Me, I think is what it's called. I never finished it, unfortunately. I should, because it was a fantastic read. I'm like halfway through it. Amazing. Just the Goggins is super interesting. He's a really hardcore, and I think to get into the motivational scene, just to tap into that a little bit is good. But it's almost like you got to constantly test yourself and battle yourself. He is very intense, where I'm a little bit loosey-goosey here. He is just cold stone intense, and it's the life that he had to live. And if you don't know his story, I recommend looking him up. He's on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's done a couple other podcasts. He is one of a kind. He's probably my favorite motivation. I should honestly go and listen to some of him again soon because he's just it's so good because you know the life that he lives. He's not lying to you. He's not pretending. He lives a hardcore lifestyle because he came from a tough upbringing. So I'm reading that book. I'm getting into it. But I go, okay, I want to start working out. I just want to start working out. I wanted to start being a little bit more productive. and I started running. And running helped me a lot because what running would put me in the headspace of you start to feel it down here. You start to feel it in your body. You start to feel a little bit sick. And what do you do past that threshold? When you're in that suck zone that Goggins would talk about, you wouldn't feel good. So for me, I'm like, I get nervous. And the reason I get nervous is because I feel sick. So if I go and I push myself through running and feel that and learn how to get over that, then I could get to a point where it doesn't really affect me, and I would do that, and it helped. And just honestly living a healthy lifestyle, running, working out, already helped. I was taking a little bit of a cold shower here and there. Like, I got totally into it. I remember running, and just when they talk about running, the running high, which I didn't know a runner's high, it was just, I could run, and I would work the next day, and I felt fantastic. My energy levels were off the charts. I felt so released away from the anxiety because I would get nervous in those moments because I wouldn't feel good, and I would have to battle the mind and get over that. And then it kind of gave me a little bit of a strategy to how to help or how to cope with my anxiety. Here are some things that you can do. I can just push past it and tell myself, you know what, I'm doing it anyway. If I throw up, I would get to a point where if I'm throwing up right here. It doesn't matter to me. I'm doing this and I'm going to throw up. If I do it, I'll throw up. I never did, but I would tell myself that as in a way to get over it. Even when I would get nervous in school or at class, I don't know, I think it could be almost an anxiety attack, what you would consider. It would be over stupid things. My anxiety was never anything crazy. It was all mental, and it was all a mental thing where I would just psych myself out of everything, and almost thinking about it, I would make myself nervous because I would say I would get anxiety. And I would just sit there and say negative things. I'll touch on that in a minute. So the running really helped. Working out really helped. Being in a motivational scene, and that started slowly happening, and I felt really good. My anxiety was nowhere near as bad, and it just kind of slowly dissipated. It's almost you don't feed it. I don't know if you've ever heard there's two different wolves. There's one in the light and there's one in the dark. Which one's bad? Or which one is going to be whatever? It's something like that. They're like, whichever one you feed. And I thinking about it, and as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about it more and more. Feeding into that anxiety probably causes more anxiety. Feeding into it like, oh, I'm going to get nervous here. Where it was like, I'm getting nervous pretty much everywhere. I really don't know why. It doesn't even matter because I really don't. I still get nervous for like the doctors, the dentist, just because I'm trying to remember where I picked up. If I had to pause there, I'm sorry about that. Where I would sit there, I would get nervous in class, and I never thought it was really big, or I make it bigger than it actually was. I would sit there, I'd tell myself I would get nervous, and maybe I just all repeated this. I do apologize, but that was kind of my grand scheme of things, is I would psych myself up to it. As I was saying, like, I still get nervous if I go to the doctors, the dentist, for some reason the movies, but I went to a movies by myself. Like I said, I went to the Odyssey, and then I went to see Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get nervous. And it never came because I'm believing into it and feeding it and saying I'm going to get nervous. I was perfectly fine. I never had a moment of nervousness. I'm like, what is the big deal here? Like, what are we nervous about? There's nothing to be nervous about here. There's nothing happening. It is perfectly fine. We're going to sit here. We're going to relax. And I never got to a point where I need to do breath work or anything. And it is probably sitting there and feeding into it, saying you're going to get nervous somewhere, saying that's going to cause anxiety and stress, probably creates that for yourself. Again, I will jump on that in a little bit. Obviously, the doctors and the dentist, those always whip me out. I had the flu in December. I've talked about it a few times. I had the flu in December, and I had to go. Every time I go, I just don't like the doctors. I don't like the vibe in there because it's sick and it's gross, and I just don't like the vibe. And I've never liked the doctors, and the doctors always makes me nervous. The dentist isn't as bad. The dentist I go to, they're really cool, so I don't really get a ton. I do get nervous while flying. I'm a very nervous flyer, but excuse me, a little plug here. Coke, caffeine free. Took a couple sips of this to wet the palate earlier. That's why I was pausing. And the reason I drink caffeine free, I'll get to in a minute. But Coke, it's not the healthiest, but hit me up, man. Hit me up. I freaking love this stuff. This stuff is awesome. I'm just a soda drinker. Like, I could probably not eat sugary junk as much, but I do just love soda. I don't know why I do. But to get back on track, those would be my causes. There's still stuff that makes me nervous. I'm not completely cured. You probably can't completely cure it. Maybe you can. So I still get nervous. I still get nervous here. I still get nervous there. But I was thinking about it where I tell myself, oh, I'm going to get nervous. And then you probably get nervous. Now thinking about it, if I'm like, I'm not going to get nervous, what is there to be nervous about? And I would tell myself that. I would get a little bit nervous, and then it would dissipate. Because why would I get nervous? Oh, I could think of all the bad things, but none of those might happen. None of those might happen. So for me, at the end of the day, that's how I overcame it. I overcame it with getting a little bit more discipline in my life, being a little bit more disciplined. And I'm not making this up. This actually is what helped it. And it was being in those positions as well. Putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions to then learn how to get out of it, if that makes sense. Put yourself in a position where you might get anxiety and you might feel uncomfortable, and just deal with it. If you last 10 seconds, you last 10 seconds, you can dip out. If it's like a conversation with somebody, you can have a 10-second conversation, and then if you start getting a little bit nervous, anxiety ridden, then you can dip out, and it's no problem. But you just have to find that threshold and get past it. Just get past it. And that's ultimately what I did, where I just started going and I started doing things, and I just stopped thinking about it, overthinking, getting in there saying I'm going to have anxiety. And there would be times I would get nervous, and there's times it's come back a little bit. I passed out. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but this is just crucial to the story, where I passed out and I got nervous after that. And I was like, okay, we're just going to drink water. We're going to stay hydrated. We're going to do the steps we know that we can to not pass out again. And now I've never passed out since. And that was 2024. So there's been bits and pieces and certain things that have made me nervous, but you kind of almost have to just deal with it. You have to overcome it, put yourself in those uncomfortable positions. And that's kind of tough to say, but breath work really helped for me. Breathing, like when I'm on the plane, I breathe, and then as soon as we take off, I'm kind of chill. I'm like, there's nothing to be nervous about. I mean, on a plane, it is scary, but just take a deep breath, relax, get in your zone, get in your state, watch something, just let's be chill. Let's stay in a chill zone here. Let's not ramp up. And about every time I've been on a plane, I've never had an extremely nervous encounter or been extremely nervous, but I've been close, but I always am able to reel myself back in, which is finding something, immediately distract myself. That's what works for me on a plane. But again, just being in those positions where you have to use the breath work, where you have to overcome what makes you nervous and have anxiety about. Like if I went to the doctors every day, the doctors might not be nerve-wracking anymore because I go every day. Oh, if I went to the dentist every day, my anxiety wouldn't be that way. And if I put myself in those positions, the breath work, the calming down, and then maybe not try to psych yourself up. That's kind of just works. And what works for me, I also think trying to live a healthy lifestyle. When I started lifting weights and running, I felt more confident. I felt more confident myself, so I didn't feel maybe as insecure and as anxiety ridden. I was like, I'm confident. I can walk in here, and if I'm lifting weights, and lifting weights as well puts you in uncomfortable positions. It's really all about the mind with anxiety. For me, it was all about the mind. Everything that you feel, and you feel sick and your heart hurts, that's all up here. That's all mental. That's all mental. That it makes you feel that way because you're getting that nervous and that worked up. To where it was a lot of just mental battle when I talk about the battle within. And that's why I really enjoyed Goggins, because it was all about battling your mind and battling to quit and certain things like that. So lifting out and being in a heavy lift session and be like, oh, I can't do it. And you do it anyway. And you do those things anyway. You build and callous the mind. And you do those things. That's what helped me get over my anxiety, was putting myself in those uncomfortable positions. And I would almost encourage people, even though I don't 100% do this because I've never been to a football game since, because I had that nervous experience that I've never been again. And maybe that's what sucks. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go to that. I'm not interested. Even though I probably would have a good time and I probably would enjoy it because I got nervous. It taints the memory for me a little bit. I've been to football games before and didn't get nervous. So one bad memory, you got to think about something else, and I'll push that off to a minute. I keep hitting my stand here. I'm sorry, guys. I just keep punching my own self, rattling it around. But ultimately, putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions, making uncomfortable, and as I said, it's all about battling the mind. You have to battle your mind, as in, I'm going to do this. And now that I remembered what I was saying, I was just going to give you filler until I remembered, and it was that now I completely forgot again. The filler. I'm sorry, guys. I'm all over the place, per usual. That's how you know. It's called unscripted for a reason. I do outlines. Now I'm getting way off topic, but here we go. Make yourself go and do something that you know is uncomfortable and is going to make you nervous so you can get over it. Because I remember going to a friend's place. I got we were playing outside. I got hot and sweaty. My vision was going, and then the next time I was like, I don't want to go because that made me nervous. That makes me nervous that happened to me. I don't want to go that again. And I sit there and I think about those negative experiences, and then the next time I go, that happens not because it just happened that way. It's because I pretty much manifested that for myself because I thought negatively, something bad's going to happen, something bad's going to happen, something bad. But what I do is you go and you do it anyway. You just kind of get over it. Where if you were nervous, in my instance, if we're nervous going to the movies, you go to the movies anyway, you do your breath work, and you get over it. And then it becomes maybe less scary. You put yourself in those positions. As I said, breath work really helped with me. I really don't ever really get as worked up anymore. Another thing that did help me, as I've showed you guys, caffeine free. When I went to the doctor one time and I was nervous, they were like, what do you do? A lot of red dye and caffeine is going to get that heart rate up. And I did a year of caffeine free pretty much, or I did a year of caffeine free to my knowledge. I might have had a Sunkist that had caffeine and I didn't know about it, but I went on a no caffeine streak. Now I can drink caffeine just fine. I had a Pepsi here. It wasn't as good as a cherry Coke. I've been having a little bit of cherry Coke recently, and I got that. I'm like, that just doesn't even taste as good as the cherry Coke. And it's like cherry Coke on the rocks. It's cherry Coke with ice. So it's not even like an ice cold like this bad boy. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about soda and get back on track. But I limited caffeine intake. That helps a lot because the caffeine is a stimulant. You get nervous, that heart rate starts going, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get a heart attack. And there's times where even recently where I consume a lot of caffeine. Okay, we're going to take a week off caffeine, a couple of days off. We're going to kind of detox of heavy caffeine usage. So if you use a lot of caffeine, that's going to maybe help if you take some of that down a little bit. Like a normal soda really doesn't do much. It's like when you're having 100 or if you have a Mountain Dew. You've seen what happens to me when I have a Mountain Dew. You've seen from episode 1, you've seen. So you guys know that's got 92 milligrams. And the reason that I calculated that out was because I want to know how much I'm going to have. So I did a year of caffeine free. I was like, okay, I'm having caffeine. It immediately increased my anxiety. I'm going to do a year off of it. And then I had little to no anxiety. Guess what? We can introduce it back in small dosages. If it gets crazy, take it off. So limiting caffeine really helped for me. I would recommend that for sure. When I'm telling you I went caffeine free for a year, I did. I would tell people, I don't drink caffeine. Now I do. I slowly implemented. So all of 2024 unless I had a Sunkist and I didn't know. Unless I didn't know it had caffeine in it, pretty much everything I had didn't have caffeine. I was drinking Sprite and certain sodas that didn't have caffeine. There was a point where I was drinking a lot of coffee, and that was crazy. And my heart rate was, I remember I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It was just going and going and going. It was awful. And I had to stop drinking coffee. But sometimes you have to make that sacrifice. You make that sacrifice, you don't have caffeine. So pretty much all of 2024 didn't have any. Introduced it back in March of 2025. I've been pretty good ever since. Again, it just depends if I have a ton. Like I've had liquid IV, caffeine, which is 100. If I have like a lot of those, and then a lot of soda as well, and I'm having a lot of caffeine, then I'm like, and it's beating like crazy. I'm like, okay, we're gonna chill off on that. We're gonna chill off on that, and we're gonna not use that. So for sure, I would recommend not using caffeine. Went on a little bit of a tangent on there, but really, I looked at it healthy lifestyle, be disciplined, do certain things. I bet if you looked it up, and there were certain things I looked up that didn't really help for me. Certain things didn't help. This is what helped for me. It was a mental shift. It was almost as if I said I'm done with anxiety and I'm done with having anxiety, and then I just stopped having it because I was done with it. It wasn't serving a purpose in my life. And being nervous is okay. Being nervous for things is absolutely fine, but I think it draws a line where it starts to affect certain areas of your life. If you're like nervous because you have to do a big speech, 100% understandable. You're nervous because you're a sports player and you have a big game, understandable. If you're nervous, like for me, going to the store, or, I don't want to go to this and do that because that's going to make me nervous, and that starts to navigate and upset your life, then you probably have a little bit of an issue. I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't 100% know. But that's what worked for me, was working out, getting into shape, putting myself in uncomfortable positions, and really a lot of mind work, a lot of mentality. And I had a lot of days even at like work where my anxiety was crazy because I was like, oh, I don't feel good. And there were certain situations, exhaustion, fatigue, battle, where it does mess with your brain and it does cause a little bit of issue. So that definitely happens. The fatigue, I've had fatigue issues and stuff like that definitely happens to me. And just going through it and like, okay, breath work. And then I think this was so bad, and this was like my back was on fire. I haven't eaten. It's been all day on my feet. And I feel just gross, probably majorly dehydrated because at a certain point in time, I wasn't drinking a lot of water. Obviously, from what it seems, it doesn't seem like I drink a lot of water. I try to stay significantly hydrated. But sometimes you got to throw something in there with a little flavor. But as I was saying, things like that. I've had really stressful days, and certain things that make you cope with it better because you've been through it, and you're like, oh, I've been through this 5-10 times now. And then it just becomes easier. So I would say probably having anxiety and go and doing things that would give you anxiety, and just how to get over it, whether you do it for 10 seconds, whether you do it for a minute, whether you're in there for the time, it's just you slowly wither it down and you get over it. And that's also what worked for me. Honestly, I don't even know how I could put it into words. Like I said, a healthy lifestyle, starting to lift weights, starting to be more motivated, and slowly more positive thoughts. Where highly recommend, if you are very interested into this video, I'm going to give you guys some people you can go listen to that can help you maybe better than I could. Just as a thought. I'm trying my best here. This is what I've gone through. I had anxiety. I know what it's like. I've been through it. I relate with anybody that struggles to go and do things because I was that person. This is what worked for me. David Goggins, a little bit more serious of a take, callousing the mind, getting in uncomfortable positions, making yourself battle your mind was really good. Dr. Wayne Dyer, and this is the huge part, and this is what I want to say here at the end of this video, is you have to think of positive. If you think of negative, and this is from him, I'm not going to butcher it, but he says that if you sit there and think about everything you don't want to happen, as I said earlier, where I would be anxiety, I'm like, oh, if I go over to this place or my friend's place, or if I go to the movie, I'm going to get nervous, and all these bad things are going to happen. He says if you sit there and you think of the bad things that are going to happen, that's what you're going to attract for yourself. You're going to attract the things you don't want. So if you don't want it, don't think about it and don't put energy into it, because that's what you'll attract. So if you have anxiety and you think about it and you think you're going to have anxiety for places, change it. Think, you know what? I'll be fine. I'm going to be fine. If something bad happens, I'll adjust and I'll be fine. And go. So having a positive attitude, positive mind space for sure probably helps, because anxiety makes you probably negative. I'm saying probably it is kind of a negative thing because you don't want to go do anything. You don't want to go anywhere. Keeps you isolated inside, away from the things that you want to do. And I recommend get yourself in uncomfortable positions. Whether it's not working out, finding something, maybe a hobby that you want to go do and have that. Working out, I swear by it, and I'll continue to swear by it because it completely changed my life. As in, I'm riddled with anxiety, unmotivated, undisciplined, brought discipline into my life, brought motivation into my life, brought a lot of things into my life. Running, obviously I don't run anymore. I've discussed that. I've walked. I got hurt, which then that became a negative, and then I was like, I'll just walk instead. I'll walk and I'll shadow box because I'm a weirdo. But realistically, those things helped because you push your mind through something, you go through adversity, and that's, I think, a lot of what anxiety is. It's an adversity that you have to rise above and take it over. I'm there with you guys. If you guys have any questions, concerns down below, I'm here. I'll take any comments. If you're very curious of anything else, like, oh, what else? As I've stated, caffeine, reducing that helped a ton. Because when your heartbeat goes like that, it helps a ton, and it limits the heart rate in certain things that get you hopped up, and then it's immediate beep, 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 beep. Because then that would also stress me out, how fast my heart's beating. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack. And then think positive. Think positive, be positive. It's tough. I'm not 100% good at it myself. I can be pretty negative at times. It's something I'm working on. But I recommend for everybody, find something you can do. I do swear by working out and running and getting in those uncomfortable positions to callous your mind. That is what worked for me. If that doesn't work for you, try something else. Try something else. As I stated, going and doing those things that you know you're going to have anxiety while doing helped a lot as well. You get the breath work, you get that experience, and then it just kind of whittles away, and then it becomes a non-issue because you do it so often. It becomes habit. So I hope everyone enjoys this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.